Hey there, anime fans! Get ready to dive into the world of Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation. A journey filled with magic, friendship, and unforgettable moments. After being hit by a truck and dying, a homeless and jobless Japanese man reincarnates into a fantasy-like world as Rudeus, son of the swordsman Paul Greyrat, and his wife, the healer Zenith. Keeping his memories of his previous life, Rudeus quickly learns to read and eventually starts practicing magic. Noticing his aptitude, Rudeus's parents hire the adventurer Roxy Magurdia as his magic teacher. Roxy initially doubts about tutoring him due to his tender age, until she witnesses his unique ability to cast magic instantly and realizes his potential. As the Greyrat family gives Roxy a welcome party, Rudeus vows to work hard to improve himself and make proper use of the second chance he was given to have a happy and fulfilling life. Rudeus reminisces about his past life when he was expelled from home and was hit by the truck that killed him while attempting to save some teenagers. He spends the next months training magic with Roxy until the day of his 5-year-old birthday party, when Roxy declares that she has nothing more to teach him and will hold his graduation exam. The next day, Rudeus, accompanied by Roxy, leaves his home for the first time. He gets distressed over his past trauma when he was severely bullied by his classmates in school, which led to him becoming a recluse. Still, he ends up overcoming it once he realizes how Roxy has blended well with the villagers, despite all the prejudice she usually suffers due to her demon origin. In the exam, Rudeus manages to summon a massive thunderstorm, and Roxy declares that he has passed. Roxy then departs to continue her journey, and Rudeus thanks her for everything she has done for him. After losing his fear of leaving his home thanks to Roxy, Rudeus starts playing outdoors by himself until he rescues a half-elf child whom he assumes is a boy named Sylph from a group of bullies. Sylph becomes friends with Rudeus and starts learning magic from him, and it is revealed Sylph is capable of casting magic without incantations as well. 6 months later, Rudeus brings Sylph home during a storm and takes away Sylph's clothes by force so that they can take a bath together. However, he discovers that Sylph is a girl whose full name is Sylphiette. Sometime later, Sylphiette approaches Rudeus, and the two make up, with Rudeus determined to cherish the first true friend he has made in his new life. The Greyrat family is overjoyed upon learning that Zenith is pregnant again. However, their happiness is cut short when their maid, Lilia, reveals that she is also pregnant after having an affair with Paul. To protect Lilia from Zenith's wrath, Rudeus convinces his mother to forgive her by having Paul take all the blame for the incident, despite realizing that she was the one who seduced him, which earns him Lilia's gratitude and loyalty. Zenith and Lilia give birth to 2 girls, Norn and Aisha, respectively. Rudeus considers leaving to study at the Ronoa Magic Academy after receiving a letter from Roxy encouraging him to. Still, Sylphiette does not want him to leave her side, and he decides to look for a job to pay for her tuition as well. Sometime later, his parents decide to entrust Rudeus to a friend of theirs, the beast woman Ghislaine de Doldia, who leaves the village with him. As Ghislaine and Rudeus leave the village, he reads a letter from Paul explaining that he found a tutoring job for him to pay for his and Sylphiette's studies. However, Paul forbids him from returning home or meeting Sylphiette for the next 5 years. In the city of Roa, Rudeus meets his employer, Rudeus Greyrat, who is also Roa's mayor and his father's cousin, and is tasked to teach Philip's daughter, Eris. However, once Rudeus is introduced to Eris, she acts hostile towards him. Certain that Eris will not listen to him at all, Rudeus conjures a plan to gain her trust by faking their kidnapping with her father's consent. Rudeus and Eris are captured, and after convincing her to cooperate, he uses his magic to escape with her. Back in Roa, Rudeus discovers that one of Philip's servants is working with their captors, who took advantage of his plan to stage a real kidnapping. Rudeus fights the kidnappers to protect Eris until Ghislaine comes to their rescue, killing the criminals and arresting the servant. Once they return home, Eris accepts Rudeus as her tutor, and he begins living in her house. Philip thanks Rudeus for protecting Eris and warns him not to reveal his connections with the Greyrat family to anyone, or he may be targeted again. While Ghislaine begins teaching swordsmanship to Eris and Rudeus, Rudeus teaches Eris and Ghislaine magic, literacy, and math. However, Eris usually skips classes out of boredom, and Rudeus decides to give her one day off per week to encourage her. While taking a stroll in the city, Eris attempts to buy Rudeus an expensive book, but he refuses, claiming that she cannot give presents to others without her own money, and suggesting her father give her an allowance. With her allowance, Eris presents Rudeus with a vial he was previously interested in, which puts him in a pinch, as he fears revealing to her and Ghislaine that it is, in fact, an aphrodisiac. With Eris's 10th birthday party approaching, Rudeus allows her dance teacher to take over part of his tutoring schedule to help her improve. At the same time, he makes use of his newfound free time to learn other languages. Despite that, Eris barely improves her dancing and considers giving up, but Rudeus encourages her to continue and starts helping with her lessons. As Rudeus makes some progress on his foreign language skills with Ghislaine and Roxy's help, Eris does not improve at all, and on the day of the party, she fails to dance with another noble. Rudeus steps in and successfully dances with Eris after instructing her to incorporate some of her fighting skills in her moves. After the party, Rudeus meets Eris's grandfather, Sauros, who sees a strange ball of light in the sky and fears it could be an ominous sign. 2 years later, Eris and her family hold a birthday party for Rudeus, who is disappointed at first that his own family could not attend due to the increase of monster activity around the country. Rudeus is presented with a top-quality magic staff, and Philip expresses his will to have Rudeus marry Eris and become his successor, but Rudeus rejects the offer. Later that night, Rudeus is surprised to see Eris waiting in his room. He then attempts to have sex with her, but she pushes him away. Realizing his mistake, Rudeus apologizes to Eris, who forgives him. A few days later, a huge cloud of mana forms in the sky, and the legendary hero Perugius Dola sends his aide Arumanfi to investigate. Suspicious that Rudeus, who was practicing with his new staff alongside Eris and Ghislaine, could be involved with the cloud's appearance, Arumanfi attacks him, but Ghislaine defends Rudeus and confirms his innocence when a massive burst of light envelops them. Inside his dreams, and looking like his past self, Rudeus has a short encounter with an elusive being known as the Human God, who instructs him to rely on and help the man who saved him. He then awakens in his current body and learns that he and Eris are stranded in the middle of the demon continent and were rescued by Ruijerd Superdia, a member of the dreaded Supered race, who becomes their friend and promises to escort them home. Ruijerd brings Rudeus and Eris to the nearby Magurdia village, which is Roxy's birthplace. During their stay, Rudeus learns from Ruijerd that his tribe's ill repute comes from the cursed spears they received from the demon god Lapis, which turned them into mindless murderers, and that the spear in his possession belonged to his son, whose death by his hands made him recover his senses. Moved by Ruijerd's determination to clear his race's name, Rudeus decides to help him, and the trio departs from the village to begin their journey across the demon continent. Rudeus, Eris, and Ruijerd arrive at the city of Rikarisu. To have Ruijerd enter the city without trouble, Rudeus dyes his hair and has him pretend to be a member of the Magurdia tribe. The three become an official group of adventurers called Dead End, but their novice status prevents them from taking quests that pay well enough for them to make ends meet. By the human god's suggestion, Rudeus accepts a quest to look for a lost pet, which leads them to another group of adventurers who kidnap pets to get the bounty for finding them. After the kidnappers are defeated, Rudeus attempts to interrogate them, but is hit by one of them, which leads Ruijerd to kill him instantly. Rudeus reprimands Ruijerd for it and forbids him from killing again. Taking advantage of the kidnappers' higher rank, Rudeus coerces them into taking higher-ranking jobs for their own party while helping improve their reputation. After the mana surge in Fetoa, all of Paul's family members are missing except for Norn. Meanwhile, to accomplish a quest, Rudeus' party looks for a mysterious monster in the middle of a forest. They encounter two other parties also searching for the monster. One of the parties is ambushed by monsters, but Rudeus decides to wait, which ends with one of the adventurers being killed. The monster they are looking for attacks and kills the other party before Rudeus and co slay it. Back in Rikarasu, Rudeus is approached by another adventurer who discovers his scheme to take higher-ranked quests and attempts to blackmail him. Moved by Rudeus' resolve to protect Eris, Rudeus drops his disguise, revealing himself as a Superd, and threatens to kill the adventurer should he reveal their secret. After leaving the city, Rudeus reconciles with Rudeus. Rudeus keeps traveling with Eris and Rudeus all the way to a coastal city on the edge of the Demon Continent, unaware that Roxy is also arriving at the continent to look for him. Rudeus and his party finally arrive at a coastal city with a port, while Roxy and her party arrive at the same time by boat, but both parties fail to encounter each other. Unfortunately, Rudeus and Eris reminds that Rudeus is a Superd, so his boat fee to travel the ocean is too high for them to pay. While looking for a solution, Rudeus is once again contacted by Human God, who instructs him to buy some food in a specific place, where he stumbles upon a hungry vagrant and feeds her. The vagrant reveals herself as the reincarnated demon emperor Kishirika Kishirisu, who rewards him with a demon eye that allows him to see a few seconds in the future. Rudeus uses this power to save a man from harm. After getting used to his new ability, Rudeus decides to sell his staff to get enough money for Rudeus' ticket, but Rudeus himself dissuades him from doing so, pointing out it will hurt Eris's feelings. Then, the man Rudeus saved arrives and introduces himself as Gallus Cleaner. Roxy and her companions, Talhand and Elinalise, begin searching the city for any sign of Paul's missing family, including Rudeus. Unfortunately, since Rudeus has been traveling under an alias, Roxy doesn't realize he is in the same city. As Roxy explores the city, she comes across Eris and Rudeus sparring, but flees when she assumes they are both Superds. Failing to find any information, Roxy and her party leave for the next town. Meanwhile, Rudeus and his party are able to leave the city by sea after Gallus helps smuggle Rudeus onto the ship in return for Rudeus liberating some goods for him in Zant port. Upon reaching Zant, Rudeus heads to the smuggler's hideout, where he finds out he is supposed to liberate beast children being held captive by the smugglers. Rudeus kills all the smugglers and escorts the children to safety, while Rudeus stays behind to free a magical dog. However, he is ambushed and captured by a pair of beastmen who were also looking to save the children and their sacred beast. Mistaking Rudeus as one of the smugglers, they take him to their village for questioning. Rudeus is imprisoned in Doldia village, later joined by another human prisoner, a rogue named Geese. A few days later, the village is attacked by the smugglers seeking to kidnap beast children, and both Rudeus and Geese break free and help the villagers. Together, they defeat all enemies except for Gallus, who reveals himself as the head of the smuggling ring who deceived him in order to use Rudeus as a distraction to lure the village's warriors away. Gallus overpowers Guise and kills 2 of his men. Realizing that Gallus is too strong to deal with alone, Rudeus considers letting him escape until the sacred beast arrives to help, and all parties defeat him together. After the battle, Rudeus reunites with Eris and Rudeus, who explain that they were delayed due to helping the Doldians wipe out the rest of the smuggling ring. The villagers apologize for falsely accusing Rudeus and thanking him for his help. Back at Fetoa, Eris's grandfather is blamed for the situation at the city after the mana surge, stripped of his position and executed before the king. With the rainy season starting, Rudeus and his party are forced to stay in Doldia village for the next 3 months. During this time, Eris befriends some of the beast children, including Tona, Guise's daughter. However, when Ghislaine's name is mentioned, this elicits a negative reaction from Guise. who reveals that Ghislaine is his younger sister who left the village long ago and is considered a traitor for refusing to become a village guardian. 3 months later, Rudeus and his party are prepared to leave after the rains stop. Tona doesn't want Eris to leave and has a falling out with her over it. Guise manages to convince her to apologize by revealing that Ghislaine was very rebellious when she was young, and the village allowed her to be taken away by an adventurer to be rid of her. He has come to regret letting Ghislaine leave without trying to understand her. Rudeus and his party then leave for the holy country of Milis, while Geese hitches a ride with them. The party reaches the capital city of Milis, Militian. However, Rudeus notices what appears to be a kidnapping taking place and follows the kidnappers. He confronts the kidnappers and is surprised to see Paul is their leader. Paul explains that their home village was caught in the teleportation disaster, and he and his party have spent the past year and a half tracking down the missing villagers and their families. When Rudeus tells Paul about his journey from the demon continent, Paul asks Rudeus why he never tried to write a letter home, or even think about the other victims of the disaster, to which Rudeus has no answer. They both get into a fight, which is only broken up by Norn's intervention, and then Rudeus flees. Seeing Rudeus in a poor mood, Eris does her best to cheer him up, which he is grateful for. Geese pays a visit to Paul, revealing he is a member of Paul's party, and encourages him to make amends with Rudeus, reminding him that Rudeus is still just a child. Paul has nightmares about what could have happened to Rudeus and decides to quit drinking. The next day, Rudeus and Paul meet again. Rudeus realizes Paul misinterpreted his initial intentions and is trying to apologize for it. After having a heart-to-heart, they tearfully reconcile. In the occasion, Rudeus reveals that he will begin looking for the rest of his family after escorting Eris home, despite knowing that her family is still missing. After parting ways with Rudeus, Paul learns from Geese that he will continue searching for the rest of Paul's family, traveling to places they have not checked yet. While Rudeus and his party cross the sea to the central continent, Roxy returns to her home village where she reunites with her parents. Still feeling herself displaced for being unable to use telepathy to communicate with her fellow villagers, Roxy considers leaving immediately, but reconsiders after realizing how much her parents missed her. Roxy learns from her father and mother that Rudeus visited them 2 years ago. Relieved that he is safe, she departs with her companions to keep searching the demon continent for the rest of his family. Rudeus has another encounter with the human god, who instructs him on how to reunite with Lilia and Aisha. Once arriving at the kingdom of Shironi, Rudeus sends a letter to Roxy, who works as a teacher in the palace, and rescues Aisha from some pursuers. Following the advice of the human god, Rudeus refrains from revealing his identity to his sister, who thinks Rudeus is a pervert due to finding Roxy's panties that Lilia had confiscated from him. Rudeus is then summoned to the palace for an audience with Roxy, but falls into a trap set by Shironi's 7th prince, Pax, who holds Lilia hostage. Infatuated with Roxy, Pax reveals that he intends to use Rudeus as bait to capture her. While waiting in his cell, Rudeus is met by Shironi's 3rd prince, Zenoba, who idolizes him for making such lifelike sculptures of Roxy and Ruigerd and seeks to become his apprentice. When Rudeus explains that only Pax can undo the seal on his cell, Zenoba promises to resolve the situation. Meanwhile, Pax's guards smuggle Ruigerd, Eris, and Aisha into the palace in return for rescuing their families, who are being held hostage by Pax. Zenoba then captures Pax, with Aisha revealing that Zenoba is a blessed child, born with superhuman strength and known as the Decapitator Prince. Zenoba coerces Pax into freeing Rudeus, while Pax's guards refuse to help the moment they hear their families are safe. Afterward, Lilia and Aisha are arranged to be sent home, where Rudeus gifts his forehead protector to Aisha as a keepsake. As she leaves, Aisha apologizes to Rudeus for calling him a pervert, revealing she knew his true identity all along. Meanwhile, Pax and Zenoba are exiled from the Shironi kingdom. Rudeus, Eris, and Ruigerd continue their journey when they come across Orsted, the dragon god. Eris and Ruigerd are stricken with fear and refuse to move, but Rudeus, ignoring their warnings, talks with him. Orsted inquires Rudeus about the human god, and believing Rudeus to be one of his apostles, attacks him. Ruigerd and Eris try to protect Rudeus, but are easily defeated by Orsted, who mortally wounds Rudeus. As he dies, Rudeus meets the human god, who reveals that Orsted is afflicted with several curses, including one that makes all living beings fear him irrationally, but somehow Rudeus was not affected. Despite not knowing the human god's real intentions, Rudeus thanks him for his help. Instead of dying, Rudeus returns to the world of the living, where he learns that Orsted's companion, Nanahoshi, interceded in his favor and convinced Orsted to save his life and spare him before the two left. During the night, Rudeus reveals the nature of the human god to Ruigerd, and the fact that the supered curse on him is gradually fading away. The next day, the party reaches the ruins of Rudeus's hometown, where he has flashbacks to his early life there. Ruigerd then announces that since Rudeus and Eris are strong enough that they do not require his protection anymore, he will take his leave. Rudeus and Eris bid Ruigerd farewell before continuing on to Roa. There, Eris reunites with Ghislaine and her servant Alphonse. However, Alphonse reveals that Eris's parents were both killed as a result of the teleportation incident, while the king executed her grandfather. Alphonse also explains that another branch of the Greyrat family has offered to allow Eris to marry into them to preserve the family line, though Ghislaine is against it. That night, Eris enters Rudeus's tent and has sex with him. The next morning, however, Rudeus wakes up to find that Eris has left with Ghislaine to an unknown location, which leaves him distraught and confused. Rudeus falls into a state of depression and begins having flashbacks to his old life, where severe bullying at school traumatized him into becoming a social recluse. Meanwhile, Eris has left on her own journey with Ghislaine so that she can grow strong enough to fight Orsted and protect Rudeus. Zenoba and Geese continue on their respective journeys as they recall Rudeus fondly. Guys and Tona continue to train together in Doldia village. Roxy encounters Kisharika and helps pay her enormous bar tab. In gratitude, Kisharika uses her demon eyes to locate the whereabouts of Rudeus's family, revealing Aisha and Lilia have safely reunited with Paul and Norn, while Zenith is located in the labyrinth city of Rapan on the Begarit continent. Roxy and her party immediately make preparations to leave for the Begarit continent to rescue her. Rudeus is still depressed, but after having a dream about Zenith, he remembers he still has a duty to find her and overcomes his insecurities to continue his journey.